Well, welcome to the workNet DuPage Career Conversations. Today, I'm Jim Fergal, and this is my 21st annual job search Halloween story. And this is going to be my final one, as today's my last day. I'm retiring. And I wanted to choose something that I thought was going to be very interesting for everyone. I'm going to talk about our services. If you are new, you can go to worknetdupage.org and sign up for our seminars. With me today is, this is my final day as the manager of Job Seeker and Veteran Services. Javon Morris and Jennifer Wagaman are both workshop facilitators here. This is Javon's last day too. She's moving over to Bridge Communities to help there. Jennifer's got those broad shoulders to handle the workshops for right now. And it's been my pleasure to work with both of you.
We're going to miss you, Jim.
We'll miss you.
Yeah, well, thank you.
It's been a great journey.
Yeah. So this program, workNet DuPage, is funded through the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA. We're currently doing virtual job clubs or career conversations that is open to the public. And I believe we are going to be continuing to do them. The next one coming up, I'll talk about at the end, but Robert Slayton will be talking about COBRA and your various healthcare options. This is open season starting Monday. So I always like having Robert in to talk about that. We do have job search workshops. You do have to go to worknetdupage.org and go to our Get Started page and fill out the questionnaire. One of my staff will call you, one of the front end staff will call you, send you an application, and then it goes to the counseling side of the house. You do have to qualify, it is a grant. We do fund training grants up to $10,000. We do offer a layoff to launch workshop every Tuesday, starting around 9:30. But again, you can sign up for that on our website, worknetdupage.org. Okay, and here, Get Started form. And a little Zoom etiquette. Pretty much, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to talk, you're going to make comments in the chat room. Let's just keep it related to the topic at hand. And thank you everyone for the comments coming in. This is going to be bittersweet for me. You all know that I love Halloween, but I think there's another step, another chapter to be written. So please use chat for any comments. And also, if you have a question, just use a question mark at the head of your question and put it in the chat. And I will be more than happy to answer it. All righty. This is being recorded. It will be posted on worknetdupage.org webinars. And also, I think Amy Yu, our marketing manager, social media manager, is going to try and put this online on YouTube today. Let us start. I couldn't think of a better topic for my final presentation. is the quest through the job search wasteland. I've been there many times myself, and I know some of you have been in it. Some of you have been in it many times, and hopefully what I discussed today will help you. Your guide is me, Jim Fergal. The only thing about virtual is I haven't dressed up, but this is one of the many personas that I've used over the years, and I usually have carved pumpkins. It's quite an extravaganza. However, today, these are examples of my pumpkins. And let's get started with the quest. It started years ago when I was contemplating a workshop on the quest for the grail, because everyone wants the perfect resume, everyone wants the perfect interview, the perfect job. And I started reading grail stories, with King Arthur and his knights. And ironically, you go through bookstores and just a book jumps off the shelf at you. This is one of many. And I started reading it and developed a 2-day workshop about it. But the thing with me, and maybe it's just what's going on in my head, is you start turning the pages and you start reading, and you get into it. It just seems like it comes alive. And then to me, comes right into color, the big color. So the premise of the grail is it shows up, and by the way, it never shows what it is exactly. Each person has to interpret the grail for him or herself. But the basis is the land and the king are one. When the king is healthy, the land is healthy. And when the king is sick, the land is sick. And that's what the grail does, is it rejuvenates the king and the land. So you have the call to adventure, and some event comes into your life, layoffs, sickness, taking care of loved ones, whatever. And it's just comes in, and then it just like all these phrases come out for you. You could call them the 4 horsemen of apocalypse. I call it, the layoffs. And I've also had people, they say, well, how's the land and the king one? And I had a manufacturing operations manager tell me, and this is a perfect example, because the land is the company. And the owner of the company used to go out on sales calls. And he said, wait a second, I got a sales staff to do that. So I'm going to sit back and chill, take care of other things, and the sales staff will go out there. Well, the sales staff, they were used to the manager going out, and all of a sudden he wasn't, for the owner. And so they sat back. Well, they sat back, and what happens? They're not generating any sales. So therefore, there's no product to produce, and there was no product to send out the door. Therefore, no one was buying the product, no money coming in. And by the time the manager realized what had happened, the owner, it was too late to turn around the company. That's what I mean by the land. It can also be your impact on the family. When you're working, your spouse, significant other, the kids, all of a sudden, you have disrupted the routine. I'm sure many of you have been caught in the dropping the kids off at school, and the kids are yelling at you, you're going the wrong way. You got to drop me off over here. Or you're in the way in the kitchen. Everyone has their routine, and now you're in it. So the land has been disrupted. Oops. So let's just go with work. Reducing headcount. I thought this was appropriate. I've been caught in this several times. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason. Sometimes it's for good cause. I've met many of you several times through the process, and it's never easy. It's very difficult, and you get thrown into the land of the wasteland. Unemployment. Now we've kind of assimilated into unemployment's online. But when we were transitioning, most people went to an unemployment office. Now it's online. And now it's frustrating because the unemployment offices are closed because of COVID. You got a home budget to worry about. I've met people in here 25, 30 years, 40 years even, same company. And all they think is just do an old school resume and throw it out on the market. You get hit with COBRA payments, okay? I mean, that's overwhelming. I remember one of my first layoff from unemployment. Yes, they do lay off their staff. Don't ask me. Was right at Thanksgiving. And my son was probably 3 or 4. And we're stopped at a stoplight. Oops. Okay. And we're stopped at a stoplight. Excuse me, something happened here. Just wait with me. Okay, let's get back on track. Sorry for that. I was trying to read chat and do 5 things at once. Apologize. So my first layoff from unemployment, they do it, I don't know why, at Thanksgiving. My son's 3 or 4 sitting in the back of the car. It's a rainy day, miserable. We're sitting at a stoplight, and I just break down in tears, crying because of the stress of I got hit with my COBRA payments and the mortgage and his birthday's in a couple days. And it was just overwhelming. And it blew me away. And he says, "What's wrong?" And I always explained to him what's going on. And, he went through the tough years of me getting laid off, which was really difficult for him anyway. So, but he's been with me through the tough times. And that's what I mean about, your effect on the family and the COBRA payments. Now you have these online applications. And it's an art form, to be honest with you, to figure out how to apply online. And if you don't know, if you're using old school resumes, it's going to be tough to get through. These online applications, the applicant tracking systems are getting better, but again, they're computers. And whenever you apply online, chances are you're going through an applicant tracking system. So what are we looking at here? I don't know about you, but whenever you're called to adventure, my first step is I want to run away. And it just seems to be taken in the opposite direction, which is okay. That's normal. As a matter of fact, when you look at the hero's journey, that's what happens is the hero or heroine is confronted with the fact or a task, and the first thing is they try to run away from it. It doesn't necessarily work. And it's not necessarily where we're standing right now in our journey, but it's what direction we're going. And sometimes you just got to stop, because you know what? The problem doesn't disappear. It follows you. So there's the clarion tune. You got to answer the call. And what happened with the Grail stories is the Grail appeared at dinner for the Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur. It's very mysterious. It's a bold light comes in, and they say, we need to find the Grail. So this is what I found very interesting, and I found that this really is the job search. You got a whole company that's been closed. You got a department that's been laid off. Or when we used to sit in the conference room for Job Club, you had all these people, all of you were job seekers. You're all on the same quest to look for your new position, but each of you is on your own road. And what the Knights did was they didn't take the beaten path. They had to choose in the mysterious forest. They had to make their own path where it was darkest. And sometimes you really find you're going to hit some dark days. We all do. And it's tough. You got to pull yourself out of it. But that's going to be what the quest about. It's not going to be easy. So what's interesting to me is, having done my storytelling workshops, I figured here's a way to put some of your quests in perspective as far as job search. Your adventure is to return back to work. Maybe another quest, of course, is to win the prize, the job offer. Maybe, as an example in the interview, win the prize is completing the project, winning that customer, exacting revenge. Unemployment laid me off, or this company laid me off. Or when I got passed over in the Army, said, I'll show them I can prove by being a civilian working for the Army in my old job that there's life after the Army. Well, it's a quest that I'm on too. Slaying the dragon. What obstacles are in the way? What lessons do you learn? Rebirth, career change, or maybe you learn some new skills, like return to school. Climbing the mountain, achieving your goals. And of course, searching for purpose, finding the right fit and the niche. I found skills that you need in the quest. Courage. Every day you have to get up and face no. Whether you're in sales, same thing. Well, you all are in sales right now, but you need courage to take that first step. Get out the door, turn on the computer, talk to someone, call someone. You need confidence. And this is where I recommend that you write out your stories. I worked with a career counselor when I was getting out of insurance to work through what calls your parachute. And what I found was I wrote out stories about maybe 7 or 8 about my life, different events. And it was fantastic because, if I was in a sales meeting getting my butt chewed, I'm writing out a positive story about something to let that just water off the back. But I was just cleaning out my desk, and there were all my stories from years ago. Persistence. Every day, you got to take some action. Okay. The more action you take, the more persistence you are at it, things start to happen. It starts to fall into line. It's like a train. It starts slowly and the cars are clanging, but eventually it starts going down the tracks 1,000,000 miles an hour. Perseverance. Okay. And this is tough because how long is the job search? And when you have, let's say a marathon is 26.2 miles, you know how to pace yourself or how to run or hills or whatever. But with the job search, you don't know how long it is. So how do you pace yourself? So you got to throw in taking care of yourself as well. Then you have resilience. And this is being able to bounce back. There's a lot of you who have attended my workshops on here who have bounced back into new positions. And I would say some of you, some pretty cool positions that you never thought you would have. So you got to bounce back. I remember a guy telling me, I was going through my layoff history. He was corporate HR manager or director. And I was telling him my layoff history. He says, well, I'll say one thing, you're resilient. I thought I was living in hell. And he says, no, you keep bouncing back. You keep doing something. I was like, yeah. And then there's so many resources out there, even with COVID. I was just talking with our tech person, and I thanked her, and the staff about how we made the transition into Zoom. There's so much information on Zoom now, unbelievable. And your libraries, job clubs have either they've gone to Zoom. I don't know what's the future of the job club meeting in person is, but I like meeting in person. And this is hard for me because I like watching you all, in the class and getting to know you. So you're out trying to cut your way through the path. And, whether it's a career, whether it's job search, whatever, it's never a straight line. It's always, you're forward, backwards, even careers now. There's lateral movement in careers. You're up, you're down, things like that. So accept the winding path. When I first started facilitating the job club, I had a coach who was presenting, and he said, we like everything in a straight line. He says, and all of a sudden life throws you these curves. And he says, we never learn anything when it's easy and in a straight line. We learn life's lessons in the curve. And you've been thrown a curve. You're in it right now. Or maybe you have a problem at work or a problem in the family. Those are all curves. And there's lessons to be learned from them. Job Seeker gave me a book on the War of Art. Very simple book, War of Art, Stephen Pressfield. And he talks about resistance. Everyday resistance is there. Remember I was talking about having the courage to face the day? Well, resistance comes in. Like today, it's rainy, it's cloudy. You want to throw the covers over your head. I don't want to do a search today. Oh, I got this problem staring me in the eye. What am I going to do? So resistance will sabotage you. And resistance has two partners in crime. They're called fear. What's going to happen? Okay, it's all the unknowns that are out there. And I was just telling my son, I have some stuff going on in my personal life as well. But once I made a decision, everything became crystal clear. But you're worrying back and forth and back and forth. We'll talk about this in a little bit. But it's that decision, then everything becomes clear to you. There's also a thing called rationalization. If you break down rational lies, but don't use the Z, L-I-E-S, These are the lies you tell yourself. I had a good interview this morning. I don't have to do anything for job search this afternoon. I think I'll just watch TV, catch the news. Next thing you know, boom, the day is gone. I'll just watch one episode of this series, and next thing you know, you've binged through season 1 or 2. That's the rationalization. So let's talk about the baggage that you carry. These are the attachments of the what ifs. And these inspire terror and hesitation, pride, bewilderment. The what ifs. Pride. I can't. I'm not going to ask for help. What if my unemployment claim doesn't go through? Here's one: fear of success. Have you ever been on a job interview and you're like, oh my God, I hope they don't offer me the job because I don't know if I want this one. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to some of you. What if, and this is one I hear commonly, what if I take the job and it doesn't turn out what they say? What if I don't like the manager? What if I don't like the staff? What if it's not what I want to do? See, so all these things come in the way, and then they're on your back, like a rock that you're dragging. All righty, let's knock this one out. No one's going to hire me because. No one's going to hire me because I'm too old, overeducated, too much experience, overqualified, not enough experience, I don't have a degree, all this stuff. And I heard this, or I read this from a recruiter. The only liability you have going into an interview is what's in your head. And I was like, wow, that's so true, because it affects what's in your head. Your state of mind affects your body language. It affects your tone of voice and affects the words you choose. I had this lady at a front desk position open. She had been laid off and she was having a tough time. And she was interviewing, 8:30 interview for front desk. She comes in, hair a mess, no smile, just a frown, and a rumpled dress. And I'm like, oh, I couldn't see her at the front desk, but because of what was in her head, she presented herself negatively. Now, I don't know what was going on with her. As a matter of fact, I tried to pull answers out of her because I said, I know she's got experience. I've seen her in the workshops. I've talked with her, but she wasn't able to convey how she matched the job. And afterwards, and this is a key point for all of you job seekers, is it is not the employer's responsibility to pull the answer out of you, to figure out how you match. It's your responsibility. Because that's what HR did to me. Why are you doing that? You're helping them. You're not supposed to help people in the interview. I'm like, oh, okay. So this is why you have to get rid of all this crazy stuff, because if you look on the tombstones here, you're going to miss opportunities and your dreams are going to be crushed. Sometimes you got to take a walk off the cliff. Okay. There is element of risk. We want a crystal ball. We want to be able to predict the future. We want safe. We want a safety valve. We want a net underneath us. But you got to take the risk. And resistance comes in again as distractions. You're close to the goal and all of a sudden, boom, something, I don't know, I remember recruiting and I sending this one lady on an interview, and I've talked, this was before cell phones and stuff, and I'm talking with her, she's on the way to the interview, and I don't know what happened. She went off God only knows where she went. I don't even know she went to the interview. Distractions happen. You're driving, you leave late from work, you miss the interview because whenever you leave late, you have red lights, trains. That's the day they decide to paint the highway lines, whatever. It's all distractions. But you got to stay focused. Okay. And a friend of mine gave me this quote: discipline is the bridge between your goals and achievement. That means every day you take some sort of action. Schedule your day. It's tough to do, especially some of us who aren't as disciplined, but there's a lot of tools out there. I know there's a couple of speakers on the call. I know Paul Cameron, Tim Murphy, they all talk about Sarah Breithaupt, they all talk about getting organized. Get organized, all righty? Plan your day. As a matter of fact, when I did recruiting, they talked about plan your day the night before, so that when you wake up in the morning, you're energized and you're not lost doing research, getting distracted. Again, you start your job search online, all of a sudden, next thing you know, a Kardashian, or you're looking at sports scores or some bizarre things going on, and you've lost track of time and you've wasted time. Now, this is one of the failings of some of the knights on the Grail quest was egocentric. The question was going to be, how can the Grail help me? And they're focused on their physical self, trying to control the environment. I know there's a few control freaks out there. We did an exercise years ago when I first take over as manager, and the director says to me, you had to stand on this imaginary line. Could care less about control and real control freak. And I was put myself in the middle, and my director says, no, you go way down to the end. Well, the job made me do that. I had to know I was manning 3 desks, the resource room, trainers going out, just a lot of stuff. So you had to try and control it and think of backup plans. But I've also seen this when I talk with job seekers, when they're going through a negotiation, and it's like, I'm going to get as much as I can out of these, SOBs, and, what's mine and how much can I have? And, how can I feel more safe? A lot of demands out there. This is what I want in the job, benefits. My younger son was telling me about some kid who just graduated college, pulls up in some high-speed car, maybe a Ferrari, I don't know, high-end, just graduated college. He was hired as an accounting clerk. Well, they had him scanning files for the morning. And my son, who's a 20-something, probably 25, 26 at the time, sees him, at lunch, and the guy's getting in his car. And my son says, going for lunch? He says, no, I'm getting out of here. An accounting clerk. You should be able to, I should be getting $100,000 or more because I have this bachelor's in whatever. I mean, that's what we're talking about, the egocentric job search. So I think some of us learn later we do want a job, but it's going to be a little bit more than that. Character is developed in the middle of the wasteland. And I came up with the Wasteland because a book on transitions by William Bridges says all new beginnings start with endings. But it's that in-between time where you don't know what's going on. You're trying to hold on but you got to let go. Okay. It's if we go back to those attachments that are hanging on your back, I heard it said you got to let go of the rocks and grab the life preserver when you're drowning. But character also is how you face the difficulties. And I found, not always for the good, that when you're in a stressful situation, especially the job search, you don't always show your best side to your family. Some speaker came into the job club years ago, and he told everyone in the job club, after this, go home, apologize to your family for your behavior, and take the dog for a nice walk, something like that. And we have those moments. Yeah, I can remember one time my youngest son is born. It's just a miserable day. I'm expecting the unemployment check, and they say, "Oh, you've been frozen because you went to training on the weekend." I'm like, "But it was the weekend," and I still was doing my job search. Well, you got to bring all that in. I said, "Okay," and then they said, "Okay, just don't tell us." I'm like, "What?" But when I got that notice, I needed that unemployment check because you're looking at, gosh, do I buy diapers? Do I buy food? Do I buy formula? And, I wanted to put my foot through the back door. But luckily, I had the presence of mind to realize, well, if I can't afford diapers, how am I going to afford a back door in the middle of the winter? So I held off. So I always call it the shadow self exposes him or herself in tense times. If you ever studied personality. Now, interesting, the Wasteland, as you're searching, you're questing for that grail, there's tests to the hero, especially if you read the hero's journey. The hero, the heroine are going to face certain tests along the way to gain knowledge. And these, as this James Thompson says, great trials seem to be necessary as preparation for great duties. All of these tests are providing you with information that you're going to use later on. So in order to hit the Grail Castle, get to it, you're going to have to negotiate your way through the Wasteland. So what's going on in the Wasteland? What's happening in this in-between time? Well, we're looking at preparation. You're being prepared for something. You're being tested. Okay. You're also being purified. And, I'm going to show you a slide where I show how to melt metal to make soldiers, lead soldiers or metal. You got to scrape the scum off, all that old thing, all that old stuff that's going on. Your old way of conducting a job search. There's also refinement, purity. Okay, you're open and to more events, more knowledge, and you've learned so much, and sometimes this refinement is getting that certification. It's different you. So this is the example of being in the Wasteland here. So let's pretend this is a piece of metal, and this is your old self trudging your way through the Wasteland. Now, you have some pivotal event. You've been laid off, you've gotten sick, broken your leg, your computer crashed, whatever. Could be the economy, it could be COVID, God only knows, but it's the need for struggle. And the struggle is what, you put your old self is in this cauldron melting, it's changing your shape, it's events. And then you're going to be poured into a mold and then you transform into your new self. You see, so there's an old Roman saying, you never go into the same river twice, because it's constantly changing. You can't go back to the way you were after an event, because it's changed. You've changed. Now, the knights would end up at Crossroads. Sometimes there was a ruin of a church or castle or some home, and they usually met a hermit there. And the hermit would interpret dreams and things like that, which I found interesting, because, and also provide advice and guidance. You're not going to reach the grail because this is what you're doing wrong, or you need to change your way of thinking or change your direction, things like that. Also in the wilderness are connections. The knights would run into each other, even though they were on different paths or cutting their own way. Sometimes they would cross paths, and they would ride with each other for a little while, helping each other out. And I can remember during my first layoffs, going for a jog with a friend of mine. We were both laid off, played football, grade school, high school, just going for jogs. Some days he was up and I was down. Other days I was up, he was down. So what I learned is these things: give with kindness. This is important. Ask for what you want. A lot of people just assume you know what they want, but this also is a negotiation. Ask for what you want. Nowadays, there's so many jobs out there. Our business service team manager was joking. We're down to only 16 pages of jobs, because we had 2022 a while ago. 16 pages of jobs. I mean, I'm talking every industry. The shortages of nurses, healthcare, factory workers. I think there's a donut maker that wants to pay $19 an hour. They're given sign-on bonuses. Ask, but also receive with gratitude. Okay. You see, when you ask for help, there's two people being helped. The other person who wants to help you because you're letting them in, and you're also helping yourself because it forces you to get out of yourself to ask for help. It's a gift to both you and the other person. And I was reading medieval mythology, and they're talking about fortune. And they say, fortune is pretty fickle. Fortune comes by you, and you got to be ready for when fortune comes. It's that opportunity, because if you miss it, it turns ugly. How many of you have had some relative, I can think of my grandfather, among others, I've heard this many times, who had some relative that had the opportunity to get in when Ray Koch was forming McDonald's. Fortune was looking at them. But there were other events that came in people's minds. Remember what I said? In their heads. And they said, yeah, you know what? This sounds like a crazy idea. And then afterwards, they look at it and say, wow, fortune was looking at me, but I turned my back and it turned its back on me. So, sometimes the opportunities don't always come dressed to the nines. Diamonds are not sparkling when they're in the field. All righty. They're all over the place and they're dirty. Now, let's talk about the Wheel of Fortune. And no, Vanna White's not going to come on here. This is from medieval times. They used to have a king or queen sitting on top where it's happiness. All righty. And then what happens is it goes clockwise, because happiness is transitory. It's temporary. Because then you go to loss. And from loss, you go into suffering. And what happens is when you go to loss, they picture a person hanging on to the wheel as it goes down, and it's the person's head is pointed down. Now, when you get to suffering, the person is naked, being dragged through the mud and the muck and all this other stuff. But eventually, you hit hope, acceptance, and the person is looking up, smiling, and again, you're to happiness. So the cycle keeps going. Well, if you're stuck on the outside of the circle, you're spinning like crazy. What I found interesting was that loss and hope are connected by faith. Do you remember that picture of the lady being distracted, walking across that gap with the fire coming up? Well, that's that leap of faith that you got to take sometimes when you're interviewing with a company, because you don't know where it's going to land. You don't know what's going on there. So you have to have faith, belief in yourself. Now, the other interesting thing is suffering and joy. Or suffering and happiness are connected by joy. You know, it's like paying your dues. You know, plumbers, how do you pay your dues? Well, first you're an apprentice, you got to do apprentice and go to school. And they give you of course, the dirty jobs or the tough jobs or something. But eventually you become a journeyman, and eventually, you move up in the union, or you leave and start your own business. Rock bands, okay, same thing. They play all these gigs, sometimes to two people. I know I've done workshops one-on-ones with people because they showed up. But each one of those times I do it is I'm helping someone, but also I'm helping myself, because I'm paying the dues, because then I get really knowledgeable about my topic, and then I get joy out of doing this. So, again, it goes back to helping others and helping yourself as well. But see, when you're in the middle of the circle there, where faith and joy intersect, you love what you do. And a lot of you are great at what you do. And a lot of you love what you do, because I can see it in your body language when you've told me that, when we've met one-on-one, or when I've done Zoom resumes with you. Your whole body language changes, the inflection of your voice, you sit up straight, there's power. You use your hands and arms, and that's how you have to be in the interview. So make that commitment to that interview. You see, when you love what you do, there's something greater than ourselves. I never understood this when I was in the midst of the wasteland sometimes. People say, I had a friend, is making lots of money or whatever, and he's telling me, oh, give back and all this other stuff. I said, give back. I only got $2 in my pocket, and we're in a restaurant. I can't even afford this. But then what I found over the years is that when you find that meaning, that niche, you're willing to suffer, you're willing to take loss in order to give happiness to others, a higher mission, if you will. So reinvention, there is a need for struggle. People say, oh, gosh, it's too hot out here. And then someone said, well, I'll wait till the winter. And then when it's winter and 10 below, everyone's, oh gosh, how much longer is it going to go on? I can't wait for the summer. The seasons change. If everything was hunky-dory, if we had spring all the time, we'd never be able to appreciate it, because we'd become bored with it. So there is a need for struggle, because through struggling, you also grow. There's nothing about a caterpillar. When you see a caterpillar on a tree, that's going to tell you it's going to turn into a butterfly. And they did an experiment, someone talked about it, where, the butterfly is coming out of the cocoon. And they said, what if I just use a little razor and help that butterfly get out, make it easier for that butterfly? Well, what happened was the butterfly couldn't take off and fly because it needed that struggle to develop those muscles in order to fly. So what's happening when you're in struggle, when you're in these tense situations, your muscles to deal with change, to deal with whatever event, the pressure, the stress, is building muscles for you. It's also been said you get the same problem over and over again until you get it right. I don't know, 7 layoffs and 4 career changes in 7 to 8 years, you know? Why did they keep giving me the same lesson, right? Lifelong learning. Alvin Tolfer, future shock. He says, the illiterate of the 21st century is the person who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Technology is constantly changing. Heck, I even heard Facebook is changing its name now. Okay. But here at workNet, we're funded by this Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. You have all these local career centers that are slowly opening up. You have the community colleges, internships, there's returnships for mothers returning to work. There's on-the-job training, which is, we work with employers for that. You can go to Lynda, Coursera, LinkedIn has their online training. So there's all this information out there. Even I was talking with our Adela, our COD contact, about when I retire, I'd like to go back to college and learn animation. It's been a passion of mine since college, And again, we got to connect the dots. Is every time I got laid off, that's what I was always interested in. So who knows? Now, as you go on interviews and trying to find your own castle, you're going through exploring. You're exploring the companies. The whole interview process is exploration. You're exploring the company. Is this going to be a good fit for me? Am I going to be using my skills? The company's looking at you. Is this person going to come in and help us? Are they going to hurt us? And you're going to see companies that are in great shape. You're going to see companies that are struggling across the board. See, as you're exploring, you change because you learn information. If you think about your first interview and now you're on your 10th interview with the 10 different companies, you've learned along the way. You've changed. You now have gained some insight as to what companies look for, how to answer questions, or what to look for when you're interviewing a company. Okay. And then eventually that gives you more power. The more you explore, the more you change, the more you're comfortable with yourself, you have power to present. Again, it's that body language thing. You now are confident in the interview, walking in. You're going to stand taller. You're going to project the tone of your voice, and you're going to sit straight and use your hand and arm movements more. And you're going to smile. Now, this happened a lot with the knights, is they would bang on the door to the Grail castle. I demand to go in to find the Grail. I've had people come in, I said, well, what interests you about this company, or why should I hire you? And they would say, because I need a job. No one owes you a job. You have to start talking about what is your benefit to an employer. All righty. Yes, you want a job. It's assumed. Everyone, you're sitting in front of that employer because you want to work there, hopefully. They're not just going to give you a job because you say, well, I want a job. You have to show your benefit to the employer. Here's what I know about your company. Here's how I helped my last company make money, save money. Here's how I solved their problems to make that money and save money. What is your benefit to the employer? That's how you get the gates open. So as you approach your castle, and we all have our castles, you have to start looking at your life and career like a castle too. It's a sum of different building blocks. What are some of these building blocks? Well, go to ONET online. You have all these different assessments here. abilities, interest profiler, skills. You can take these assessments at ONET online because you start getting illumination to yourself. You also have to explore the dungeon. That's the dark things you don't want to talk about, bad jobs. You see, you can learn something from bad, but you got to open that door sometimes. I've had bad jobs. We've all had bad jobs. And sometimes, I like this. I made this because this is how I felt with job seekers, trying to get them to talk about themselves or accomplishments, pulling the stories out of them. Let your stories out. Talk to people. So let's look at it. Everything that some of the components of the job search, getting through the wasteland. You got family, you got people. I know you want to isolate, but you got to move on from that. You have all these different life experiences. And I use life experience because what colors your parachute, the exercise, is based on writing accomplishments throughout your whole life. What are your values? What's important to you? Find a company that's in sync with your values. Your travels. Some people have been to many countries. I had a guy in the workshop. He's been on 7 continents. Didn't go to Antarctica, but then I know a job seeker who was in Antarctica, so all of these experiences and travel are going to help you. What are your talents and skills? Do some personality assessments. What are your interests? What are your fascinations? Remember I said about animation? It's been my interest for a while. What do you read when you're not thinking about work? And then think about your work history. You see, because once you start identifying all these things, you start connecting the dots. And where does that lead you? Okay. Here, your North Star. And it helps you with your sword of power. Your sword of power, your Excalibur, is talent. These are the things that you. Those of you who are on a schedule, I know I'm going to go over, just so you know. The witches of niche. 3 of them. What's your talent? Your market. What's the market for your talent? And how much effort are you going to put in to develop that talent even more? Okay. So you're going to run across these 3. And that's how you find it. I remember writing my football coach from college, John Gallardi, St. John's University, Minnesota, taught me so much. And I told him, I said, wow, this is what I love to do with these workshops about 10 years ago. He says, I knew you'd find it, but isn't it just so rewarding when you find your niche? It's the same for all of you. We're all on this quest to find our niche. What's the gap between what the world needs and what do you have? And when you find that niche, when you find that purpose, like this knight gets knocked off the horse, your values, your passion, your talents, you're going to fill the world's greatest needs. That's what you use, and that's what you're looking for. Unbelievable. And it gives you power. Double-edged sword as well. You see, because knowledge brings responsibility, forces you to act. You can have the knowledge, but if you don't use the knowledge, you're wasting it. You see, because the next one is the toughest. Action shows sincerity. That's the hardest part, is the action. Those 6 letters. There's other things I'm involved with, and I say, gosh, action is so hard. That's why, getting up out of bed in the morning when you're laid off, it's so hard to do. But you got to take that action. You also find you're going to change in yourself, the questions you ask. What was the reason I was born? What is the greatest purpose and meaning out there, okay, of my life? And how am I meant to be of service? You see, the questions, one of the knights, usually Percival is the one who's common in different stories, is he's invited in the Grail castle and he sees a wounded king. The king talks with him, invites him to dinner, and there's this mysterious procession. Something mystical goes on. But the knight, Percival, was taught not to ask any questions. So he didn't ask any questions, although he was intrigued, because his culture told him you're not, his training said you're not supposed to ask questions. And then the next morning he wakes up, the castle's empty, only one bouncer is there, throws him into the moat and says, "You failed, you didn't ask the questions." And the townspeople hated him and threw stuff at him because he could have turned around and saved the land and saved the king. "So what ails thee, brother?" was one of the questions he's supposed to ask later. "So what's the pain of the employer? Whom does the Grail serve?" Service. You serve, for me, I serve the public, I serve you, I serve the staff here. You serve the customer. You serve your director, you serve your manager, you serve your team, whatever it is. What's the pain, the problem that needs to be solved, and how can you be of service to solve it? The question for you is, whom do you serve? Start looking at it. Look over time, connect those dots. How have you been of service to your previous employers, and how can you be of service to your new one? The one thing I found is the true treasures. Money. It's all about the money, isn't it? And I was just talking with someone the other day. I had this vice president come in years ago. He was making over 300K a year. He got laid off, lost all his stock options, was pretty much broke. And he says, "I have just lost 25 years of my life because the company owned me by the amount of money they paid me. That I would miss my kids' communion, graduation, because I was flying to Italy or flying wherever. You see, because the money held them captive. Sometimes you have to make trade-offs. It's all about choices. Maybe you don't make as much money, but you get a different type of security, or you get different types of benefits." But as I was developing this workshop, and I was early on in my career, I was looking at fame and fortune and all this other stuff. And I forgot what a friend had told me, was that, and this guy, he lived a fast life. Hot women, hot cars, and hot party life, which means everything pretty much. I thought he had it all. And then he said to me, "Jim, I trade in all my money, everything, to have what you have." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "You got a beautiful wife, two beautiful boys, and a beautiful house. I don't have a mansion by any means. I have a small house." But, all of a sudden, when I was working on this workshop, I turned back. I said, I was going for a walk around the block. I came back, I looked at my house. I said, I'm looking externally for the Grail when I need to look internally. You see, not all that is gold and sparkly is treasure. Treasure means different things to different people, but you got to know what's important to you. Again, temptations are going to come in the way and distract you in your pursuit of those true treasures. Don't get distracted. Again, what's your goal? And what action is going to take you? What discipline is going to get you to that goal? The Grail is finding the niche, the right company, that right position, with people you can work with a mission of the company that you can support and serve. It's also a form of rebirth, because now you come into a new company, it's a new chapter, new position, new career, whatever it is. You have a new energy and also a different focus on life and work. Being proud of who you are. As you do research on yourself and go out there and talk with employers, get feedback from people you've worked with or family about yourself, you start learning who you really are. I remember one of my Halloween presentations, my mom came up to me, here I am all dressed up, and she sat through the presentation and she says, "Don't you think people are going to think you're weird?" And I said, "Mom, I am weird. What's the big deal?" You see, I eventually became comfortable in my own skin. Same for you. We all want that crystal ball. We all want guarantees. We want to predict the future. But tough, you got to take risks like the rest of us. I used to have a crystal ball in my office. One of the job seekers I was doing a resume with, we were talking about the crystal ball. I had it out for Halloween. I shook it. Well, let's see what it says. And the ball flew off the pedestal and shattered on my rug. I was like, oh, I hope this isn't an omen or anything. Well, that's when I gave up looking at crystal balls. Here's the important thing for you to remember. Right now, you're writing your own story. There's nothing written in the future for you. You're writing it. You make it happen. And I want you to keep that in mind. So before I wrap everything up, these are all the miniatures. Again, this position, I have been grateful that I have finally gotten into the position where I can use my hobbies, combine my hobbies, my talents, and my skills to help others. It takes my creative side to take it to another level. And yeah. So these are some of the different personas that have shown up over the years. My staff, friends, Paul Cameron there, who used to record these when they were in person. And as I was writing, they want a little bio on me. I've always believed that I've always served others. Throughout my life, I've always been willing to help others, whether it was my country, when I was in the Army, even when I worked for unemployment, it was helping people get jobs, and even here, getting you to reconnect. And it's been an honor to serve all of you. It's just, it's a two-way street. I got a lot of comments on LinkedIn, and I thank you so much. And they were very heartfelt, and they've touched me deeply. That's what I can say. But I also want you to know that I've learned from you. And I know this is a little tough for me right now. But this is the feedback that's important, is that when you tell me or Jennifer Javon or any of you, the counselors here, what happened in the interview, how did you get the job, how did you negotiate, things like that, is we learn as well so we can help others. Again, this is one of service. And that we're here today to be able to, that I'm here today to put on this presentation is because of other job seekers who come before and told us about the jobs, because, Congress is our boss, which means the people, the community. Another thing I didn't think about, that I've had some great speakers come in and present. I can't even begin to name them all. Paul Cameron, we were talking the other day. We started through networking. when he started his company, I gave him the opportunity to present. I just, took the gamble. I said, well, come on in. These people aren't going anywhere. How can you help? Tim Murphy, another guy, we met because one of the counselors that I was talking to at a theater waiting for a movie said, oh, there's a guy you need to meet. And there's employers out there. I can't even mention all the speakers. But again, it was a two-way street. I wanted someone to help you in the job club, but also at the same time, I wanted to help them. Because I knew sometimes with National Speakers Association, they needed to have so many gigs. And any sort of information, if you can walk away with one piece, is great. I've been to community organizations. I've helped veterans. It's been a passion of mine as well. So I just want to thank everyone to be in there with me. And yeah, the titanium hand guy. Thanks, Gary. I remember all of you. You're all stories. I was sitting in the conference room the other day for the final staff meeting I'm in. And I said, I walk in this room and I look at the faces, I look at the stories, and it's just touching. I know where you sat. I know what you do. When I tell your story to help another job seeker, you're alive. Just know that. And again, that perseverance and resilience. All righty. Again, let us know when you get a new position. It's going to help others and help us, because we can then help others as well. Just pay it forward. That's all I'm going to say on that. It's very tough for me to move on here. So those of you who are with us and have a counselor here, Feeney, 1021. Jennifer came up with this. Feeney, the finale, the end. FINI, 1021. Dr. Maria, thank you. Another presenter we happen to cross paths with. I keep telling my son to call you. It's, I haven't even looked at everyone on here, but I just want you to know, it's been a fantastic ride. And on my bike, Maria. And I've always heard about sports figures or rock stars. You got to go out at the top of your game. And I feel I'm at the top of my game, and the time is now. So I wish you all the best. Make sure you email Feeney 1021 to your counselor. That gives you credit. You have to maintain some monthly contact with them. I'm sorry. Okay. So with that, wish you a happy Halloween and pleasant travels on your journey through the wasteland. Thank you.